guests of House of the Dreaming. Welcome to the collective. We have with us a very magical guest, Samandryel. Thank you for being with us, Samandryel.
Thank you for having me.
Samandryel, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're a very spiritual and magical person. Why is that?
Well, for years and years, I've been of the pagan persuasion, I think you could say. I actually taught Wicca 101 back in the 90s for a while. And now it's interesting you mention that because my philosophy has been changing quite rapidly over the last year or so. And I just call myself today a witch.
Terrific. Is there particular paths that you're exploring currently? Is that why your philosophy is changing?
No, I think it's changing because I recently underwent an awakening, and my philosophy just changed. It didn't match up with what happened to me. And,
so, are you referring to awakening as an awakening to the vampiric condition, or?
Yeah, it's a second awakening, actually.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the first and then about the second? How is that different?
Well, it's very interesting because I haven't had any connection with any organized vampire society for the majority of the time. I awakened back in I would say the early 90s, early to mid 90s, and I ended up changing a little bit. My behavior, my feeding behavior changed, I would say, in the late 90s. And I recently underwent an awakening, I would say, about 4 or 5 months ago, a second awakening to a different side of my vampiric self. Not only that, but I also, last July, became involved with the vampire community in New York. And that's really my first taste of it. I haven't been involved.
Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Indiana. I was born in Indiana. I moved with my family to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the early 70s. We won't go there.
And now you're in New York.
Now I live in New York. I lived in Chicago for a brief period of time.
And when you say you're involved with the organized vampire community, are you referring to a house, a court? What?
I am currently a citizen of the Court of Lazarus.
Oh, terrific. Terrific.
And I'm also a dedicant of your own house, the House of the Dreaming.
Terrific. Now, do you consider yourself a Ronin?
Yes, I would say at this time I have no. When you say Ronin, it brings to my mind the idea of a samurai. Having no affiliation with any sort of lord, and I guess I do associate myself with that kind of idea.
Okay, terrific. Now, when you going back to the awakenings, that was sort of interesting. You said you had one awakening, and then your the method of feeding changed. Tell us a little bit about your first awakening. What was that like? That was a realization that you were indeed a vampire, or?
Yes, it happened. Like I said, in the early '90s. I was in my 20s, and I was out with some friends, and I was with a date, and a couple of things happened, and let's just say that my first experiences as a vampire were sanguine, and I was sanguine all the way up through 1999 or so, and then my behavior changed slightly. I stopped. I guess I lost my donor. I wouldn't have referred to that person as a donor at that time. I didn't even know what a donor was. So. The person I fed off of disappeared from my life. So I changed behavior. And honestly, I thought that maybe something was just wrong with me. I thought maybe I was sick or that I had some sort of problem. And just recently, I'd say last October of, let's say it was 2010, and now we're in almost March of 2011, I had this sudden realization after talking to another vampire, and it was like an epiphany, and I realized that I had been feeding sexually for a number of years and had not even realized it. I had actually changed methods of feeding, from one form to another. And today, I embrace several different methods of feeding, from psi to sexual to sanguine. I still practice sanguine. I went back to it.
I have to ask you a question.
Sure.
Safety.
Safety is
We're talking
very
about
important.
two very potentially hazardous methods of feeding.
Sexual and sanguine, yes. And safety is incredibly important. I can't stress that enough. You need to be with a trusted donor, somebody that you know is safe, that you absolutely are positive is safe. The same thing with sexual vampires and Eros-type vampires. You really have to have a donor that is trustworthy, safe, tested, so on and so forth. I was a nurse actually back in the early 90s, and one of my jobs was actually testing blood for disease for potential blood donors, and I understand how important it is, and I cannot stress that enough. If you're sanguine or sexual or Eros, you really need to, and you are actually in physical contact or taking substances into your body, you really need to be careful with what you're doing.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure that we do have some sanguine viewers, and that is something that is always stressed: is safety, not just for the vampiric partner, but also for the donor as well. And so it really pays to be educated. Where would you recommend that sanguine vampires out there look for educational material where they can find out about safety protocol and health hazards and safety methods?
I would say if you read something that in a book or an article that has been written by a vampire, I don't know if I would necessarily trust it, because you don't know what the training of that individual is. You don't really know if this person knows about safety or not. You're just taking their word for it that they, if they're cautioning about safety, what you should be doing is looking into medical resources and seeing what are the risks, what are the hazards, and look into it the same way someone might look into whether if you were a risk for HIV, for example, which vampires are. Sanguine vampires and sexual vampires are at risk for HIV if they don't, if their donors are not screened very carefully. And but definitely take those precautions because for a vampire, in my opinion, as a vampire, I can tell you that I've had the most wonderful and profound experiences as a sanguine and sexual vampire, and the energy that I take into myself is exquisite. And I would say if that is your method, then be careful and enjoy it.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Now, I know you're holding cards in your hand. I know that you want to tell us about your magic.
Well,
Tell us a little bit about
I'm a
what you
professional.
do.
Before I answer, could you hold these for just a second? Excuse me. Yeah, I just need to get those out of there. But they've been bugging me this whole interview. Actually, I am a professional magician, and I think we had talked once before about how would theatrical magic, like the type that I do with cards and stage illusions and that sort of thing, how would that relate to real magic, true magic, ritual magic that people do? And I think there are similarities. The most important one being the ritual aspect. I think that when a stage magician performs a trick, from beginning to end, from the pledge all the way up through what we call the prestige, or the end of the trick, you are setting the stage and setting the mind of the viewer in motion. And you're setting them into a certain state of mind that you want them in order to deliver the prestige or the impact of the trick. Now, I think the same really goes, and that's sort of an ethereal portion of that, the cerebral portion and the ethereal portion of magic. You're really setting them up. Now, with ritual magic, you're really doing sort of the same thing. You're setting to do a ritual. You don't really need to have all of the different tools that one would use for magic, the sword, the wand, all of that. But I think that they are very important, because you use these tools to set the mind in motion. You're creating an act from the beginning to the end, and you're raising an energy, not just raising an energy, but you're setting your mind in a particular direction. You know what's going to happen. Somebody who may associate, and it depends, on the individual. Somebody who might use the color green, might associate it with nature, while another person using a green candle might associate it with money. So it's really going to depend on the individual. So again, use books as suggestions, but really follow your heart with this. And I do that with magic all the time. I read the books about the card tricks and about the stage tricks, but I really let my own imagination take over and do what I see fit.
Now, let me ask you a question. We're talking about magic, we're talking about illusion, and we're also talking about vampirism.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that you get from when you perform illusion for the crowd? Do you draw from your audience? Should I worry when I'm in your audience?
Definitely, most definitely. No, I think that I think I do feed from my audience. It's a very surface type of feeding. It isn't really a deep feeding, it's a surface feeding. But yes, from the individuals who are watching, magic generates a very primal sensation in a viewer. When you make something appear, disappear, when something changes or appears before their very eyes, and especially in their hands, and that's my favorite type of magic, the magic where I can use an individual's hands and make the magic happen there. There's sort of a primal moment of, and the brain wants more of that, and it's a very similar sensation to the person that might be having sex, or that type of thing. It's a very, very primal thing, anger, and that type of emotion. And I definitely take that into
It's
me.
almost like a surprise, a bedazzlement. So
yes,
there is an energetic
There's
surge.
an energy release. Yeah, there's a definite surge and release that comes from it. And again, speaking of the ritual, as the ritual builds, as the trick itself builds, something's building in the spectator, an expectation. You're leading them up a path from the turn, the promise that something is going to happen, or from the pledge, I should say, to the turn where something actually happens, and the person's looking for the secret and they can't find it. And there's the prestige, the sudden moment where something reappears or disappears entirely, and now they're completely baffled. They have that moment, that little moment of. That's the only way I can describe it. And
so from the collective,
mm-hmm.
you draw.
I do. I definitely draw that in. And when you have an audience of 10 people in front of you, that's something. When you have an audience of 1,000 people in front of you.
Have you ever performed for such a large-scale audience?
I have.
Here in New York?
I have, yes. And I have another thing coming up, very, very soon, that we're going to perform this huge show, and I'm really looking forward to that moment.
Excellent,
mm-hmm.
Excellent. Where can we find you if someone is looking to speak to you,
mm-hmm.
to talk to you about either your magic or your spiritual beliefs? Where can they reach you?
If people want to find me, the best place to find me in this forum as a vampire, they can find me on Facebook.
Okay.
I go by the name of Samandryel
mm-hmm.
on Facebook, and they can find me there.
Terrific. And I know that you're also on House of the Dreaming, on the forum for House of the Dreaming.
I am indeed.
And so that's a good place also to chat.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for joining us. I hope to see you in the collective. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube via Vampire Lounge, via House of the Dreaming. And I look forward to zooming in on your perspectives.